Welcome to Live, where we break down what small business owners need to do and how they need to shift so that they can move from having a business that's crushing them to one that's propelling them towards their future. Brett, I was wondering, what do you think of the definition of words as a topic today?
The definition of words. I mean,
Yeah.
like pulling the dictionary out and
Yeah,
comparing
kind of like
things,
that.
or
So here's what's on my mind. As a few years ago, Google changed their name for the parent company that owns the search engine to be Alphabet. Why in the world would they do that? And my thought is they want to be the building blocks of society because everything that we've created requires some sort of an alphabet in order to build the words. And that's how we go from these emotions to these concepts is through words, feelings, and visualizations. And so words are the only way that we really can effectively communicate with each other. And it's the foundation that we use to build everything. My theory is Google wants to be viewed as the foundation that builds everything. But to me, anyway, so that's where this whole idea of the definition of words comes in is when we look at words, the meanings of those words mean different things to different people. But as business owners, we may have a perception of what someone's saying, and it may be totally different from what the person's actually saying. But then on the flip side, and we could go a million different directions, we as business owners need to adapt and mold and shift, and so we need to see the same things from a different light in order to be successful. Any
yeah,
of that stuff sound intriguing today?
yeah, it does. Really, just I mean, the standpoint. I mean, you have like the political side where you'll have a group of people in politics attempting to co-opt the definition of a word and change it, and thereby um, try and get society to shift to a different mindset. Um, and we can apply that same principle in our businesses with our people. Um, and I think a lot of that might also tie into core values and who we bring as business owners to our teams, like who we are individually, in order to make sure that we have alignment. Is that kind of along the lines of what you're thinking? Is how do we utilize this to bring better alignment?
I think it could go that direction for sure. I've also had this experience where I heard about a construction company and one of their core values was integrity or is integrity, but it just this company only has the word as a standalone entity, but they don't define what that word means in context of the company. And they have a reputation of waiting to pay their subs until it until the statute of limitations is passed, and then they negotiate a lower rate with them. And to me, that's the exact opposite of integrity. And they've lost a lot of respect in the community because subcontractors are like, I can't even afford to work with them because I know I'm going to get paid less than I'm paying my guys. And I know that they're going to drag it out until I get burned so bad I either go out of business or I just accept whatever they tell me they'll pay me. And that's happened over and over and over. And I'm thinking to myself, they have that word integrity, but because they aren't defining what that word integrity means, who knows what that really means? Like, does the CEO that's trying to set the direction of that ship really know that that's what the accounting department is doing and the stunts they're pulling? I don't know.
It's hard to imagine, depending on the size of the company, that they wouldn't be aware of that their vendors or subcontractors wouldn't have tried to bring that to the attention of the leadership.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, I mean, when you talk about the definition of words and using language, you're absolutely right. Like language is the core in which we have these concepts of being, of who we are, of how we interact with one another. Like it is all fundamentally housed in language. And for me, this is somewhat of it's a topic that I still have questions around with regard to the aspect of what language do I use? Because I'm very comfortable using a larger variety of words than most people, but yet I've learned from um, marketing training in different places that if you want to really be understood by by more people, you've got to keep things to like a seventh or eighth grade reading level, or sometimes even lower than that, um, to really, really connect. And so there's not only the words that we're using, but as you say, the definitions, what those words actually mean. And we know that just naturally, though, that changes over time. And when you say integrity, I mean, I have a very specific um, definition for what integrity is. It means being whole and complete, and whole and complete with regard to what? Well, whole and complete with regard to your word, what you say you're going to do, what you expect, fulfilling expectations others have of you, unless you have specifically used your words to say, no, I am not going to abide by that expectation that you have of me. And then making sure that your expectations of others are clear so that you don't have the conflict, so that you can have a whole and complete relationship with people, so you can have a whole and complete life. And so for me, integrity has a very, very specific meaning, and it's separate from the concept of honesty, though they're very, very tightly related. Being a person of integrity is not about necessarily about being honest. It's about being whole and complete with regard to your word, and that's to me is what that means. And I've shared that with several people, and I learned that from a man named Michael Jensen, who was, I believe, a Harvard professor who focused on this concept of integrity in his business. And within, I think it was about a year, they had a 300% productivity increase without doing anything else. Like that's what they did, is they focused on this concept of integrity with this very, very specific definition of being whole and complete, and it transformed the organization that he ran.
Wow.
Which, and so there is certainly power in bringing a word in and being very clear on what that definition is, and and then just pushing that and being consistent with it over an extended period of time, definitely absolutely can bring results. And just like I imagine, though, if you brought in the wrong one, you could, and we're consistent with it, you tear an organization apart. So I think you'd have to be careful, because there is real power in what you're doing with that.
Yeah, I find that intriguing that they were able to grow that much by focusing in on first the definition of integrity, and then I'm assuming everyone was supposed to live, act, think, speak with integrity inside the organization. Is that the process that they went through in order to gain that?
Well, it's more of just bringing awareness to, is my understanding is anyway, bringing awareness to what commitments have we made. So if a company has made a commitment that they're going to respond within a certain amount of time, they could even have that listed on their website or in their marketing material, whatever. But then they're not. If they don't have an awareness of integrity, then yeah, we tell everybody we're going to get back to them within 24 hours or within 2 hours or whatever it is. But it's within 6 hours.
Hmm.
Like, instead of 2 hours, we're doing within 6 hours most of the time. Like we're pretty much there.
Gotcha.
Like that's and if you look in your own business, you might see places where that type of attitude is really happening. It's like, we have a commitment to do X, what we're really doing is Y, and bringing that awareness, then it comes down to, well, if is responding to 2 hours even reasonable? Maybe it's not. Maybe we need to change our commitment to be responding in 6 or 8 hours, and or maybe there's something that we can do, where we can change our behavior to match the commitment we've already made. I mean, so either way, like being a person of integrity or a company of integrity also means cleaning with the messes that you've created for others. Um, for those who are churchgoers, that's called repentance. But in your business, it's not that you have to always go back to do exactly what your word was, but recognizing that you can change your word as long as you clean up the mess that you've made for other people by not keeping your word, then you can still become whole and complete. And there's this idea that integrity is a mountain without a top, and we all start somewhere on that mountain and we climb it, but there's no top, there's no peak that we can reach. We
Hmm.
just we just we can progress along that mountain, climbing higher and higher, but we're not going to get to the top. And that's the way that a lot of these principles are, like integrity. Um, we can aspire to them, but we can never say we've made it. I'm there. And when you think about integrity, you can think about like your car. If you've got a flat tire, your car is out of integrity. It's not able to perform the function that it's designed to do, which is to transport you, help you get from point A to point B. Um, Assuming that it's not a car that you just have in your garage to look good or a showpiece or whatever. But again, whatever the thing is supposed to achieve, if it's not whole and complete, if it doesn't have integrity, then it can't do that. Just like if you're in your house, if you have a hole in the wall, your house is out of integrity. The elements for the temperature from outside can freely come in and out, and that's a complete lack of integrity. And in our businesses, we have those same kinds of things with the commitments that we make to our customers, to our vendors, to each other within the business, between employees, between the owners. Like there's, and I think bringing awareness of that can be hugely beneficial to any organization. I know when I go into an organization and I see them making commitments and keeping those commitments consistently, it's like, wow, like there's these guys. If I can actually help them, they're the most fun to work with, because when we put a plan together, they actually execute on it, and and we make progress. When I go into an organization and they're scrambling all the time, everybody's heads are always on fire, and nothing is happening the way that it's supposed to happen according to what they've defined. Then it's like, well, like there's not, like, we don't need to add anything here. We need to start pulling stuff away. We need to, like, the first thing we have to do is we have to bring the organization into integrity with what it has currently before we can start piling new things on, because new thing adding more into it is going to do nothing more than make the fire burn hotter.
So in this situation, how would you see a small business owner would need to take that and run with it to be able to be effective in their business and make their business run more efficiently? What's a real world scenario of where would they start?
Well, so they could start by defining and being very aware of what their vision is, of what their goals are, and what commitments they've made.
Hmm.
I mean, that would be a very big one if that's not happened at all. And then knowing, and then asking the question every day, reviewing those goals a couple times a day. Am I living in a way that is pushing toward the achievement of these goals? Like, and you ask yourself that question. Like, am I living to make this reality? And if the answer is no, well, then you're out of integrity. So you either need to change your goals or change your behavior. And you can play with it both sides. So that, I mean, the very, very first thing that a business owner who's having those kinds of issues would need to do is to look inward, to look at themselves and realize who they need to be in order to have the business that they want to have.
Hmm.
Um, so I did EOS, um, entrepreneurial operating system implementations, as an implementer, for a number of companies, and one of the owners, for these companies would show up, 10, 15 minutes late
Oh, interesting.
to the scheduled implementation meeting. And I was like, what kind of message does that send to the rest of the leadership team when they're all there ready to go, and he shows up 15 minutes late?
Right.
Or when there's assigned readings as part of the implementation, and everybody commits to doing those readings, and then the next meeting where we continue on with the process, and we go to review what those readings were, and the owner's like, I haven't actually done it.
Mm.
It's like, well, then what are we even doing here? Like, why are we even, like, why are you even trying to put this system in place if you're not going to even be the kind of person that would live it? And I have a lot of respect for the EOS, the entrepreneur operating system. I mean, it's if you it gives you it gives leadership teams the questions that they need to answer so that they can run an effective company at from a certain level to another level. I mean, it's not a bad system at all, but if the leadership isn't actually fulfilling their commitments, then it doesn't matter.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's pretty incredible to show up late, and I'd assume it wasn't a one-off thing.
No, no, it was a pretty regular occurrence. It's like so. Anyway, like there's and that type of example is something that as business owners we just have to look inside ourselves and it's like, am I do I have integrity? Because a lack of integrity is something that we're often blind to.
Hmm.
Because there's always because it's so easy to justify that it's well, it wasn't my fault. So I'm not the one really out of integrity because there was something else that caused me to be late. There was something else that kept me from keeping my commitment. It wasn't me. And so there's nothing that I need to fix. And when you have that attitude, um, you know, anybody who's paying attention, that's a victim mentality. I am at the mercy of the world and I don't have control. And if you're truly leading and creating, that victim mentality has no place. They're the antithesis. It's like matter and antimatter. But instead of exploding, they just completely one repels the other. Like you can't have both existing in the same place.
Right. Right. Yeah. With that idea of the owner showing up late, I think from my perspective, thinking of how my team would react if I did something like that, if I was consistently late, at first they'd be like, "Oh, he's so busy," which is maybe what the owner wants to portray. But over time, I think that they would get used to, "Oh, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. He doesn't care that much. If it was important, he'd be here." And then
Mhm.
everyone else starts showing up late, and then the purpose of the meeting becomes diluted because those topics don't matter as well. And pretty soon that culture is shifted, and all because someone was living out of sync with what they were committing to do.
Right. Where even if you have leadership team meetings, and let's say you show up to them regularly, but every week they're at a different time. It's like, what does that say to your leadership team about the importance of this meeting? And maybe you don't have a good agenda. Maybe you don't actually even run a good meeting, and everything that you do in it should be an email. So there's that. But I know from experience and observation that a weekly leadership team meeting, usually 60 to 90 minutes, is a hugely powerful tool to keep alignment and prevent the interruptions in other communication that would otherwise happen throughout the week. So
Mhm.
instead of people interrupting each other, getting together once a week lets you establish a plan and an order. And unless there's a fire that nobody foresaw happening, everybody can then dive into the work the rest of the week and not have to worry about communicating and coordinating because with that hour to 90 minutes every week, you're able to put that plan together and your company can operate with integrity because you actually have a plan and something that you're sticking to and following. So, there's a lot of nuances for why the whys and wherefores. I mean, you could say, well, yeah, but our meeting's really important. Well, the right ones absolutely are. They're critical, and the wrong ones, yeah, of course you would think that they're unimportant. But that attitude of if the leader's always like, well, I'm busy doing this, I'm busy doing that, and the regular meeting is what gets moved around. Well, even if they show up perfectly on time to whenever they reschedule it, moving a meeting around like that says that it's not important.
Gotcha. So moving beyond the word integrity, what other definitions of words do you see that's lacking in the business world?
Oh, well, there's a big one like that working on right now called brand.
Okay.
Um, so you could talk to a small business owner and ask them, "Well, do you have a brand?" And like, "No, I don't. I need to get that. I need to get my logos made."
Oh,
By the way, I'll let you go from here on that one. But this is the idea that the brand in modern business parlance, we're not talking about a cattle brand, though that is one of the roots of where this comes from. but it's more than just a shape or a stamp or something to throw on your website or your letterhead. A brand for a business, especially in our modern context and interconnected world, is so much more than just a symbol.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'd love to help people recognize what a brand actually can represent in their own mind and what it does represent for the world at large. Anytime anytime we've got a small business owner who doesn't think they have a brand, means that they are operating in the sense that they think a brand means a logo and the right fonts picked out and a color scheme picked out. And that's what they think a brand means. But what a brand really comes down to is that business is a standalone entity, and that standalone entity is going to behave certain ways, it's going to act certain ways, it cares about certain things, it does work a certain way, it communicates a certain way, and all of those characteristics make up the brand, much the same way that each of us have personalities. And you're if you're thinking about your friends and you're like, oh, I don't want to invite them to the party because they're always so negative about things, that's their brand. That is part of their brand. That negativity is that person, characteristic of their brand. And you look over at this one, you're like, oh, this person, we've got to have them at the party. They always bring the party. They're the life of the party. That's part of that person's brand. It's the characteristics that everyone else is attaching to that individual to understand who they are. So all humans have a brand just by existing. All businesses have a brand just by existing. The big trick is, do you let that brand self identify, or do you take an active control of saying, at this company, these are the ways that we behave, these are the values we have, and you ensure everyone's consistent? Because a lot of businesses, as they get bigger, if they haven't taken and very intentionally worked with that, worked with that problem of identifying who we are going to be and being consistent on it, then you get multiple personality disorder in a company. And you have a great experience over here, and the next time you have a terrible experience. I'm sure everyone's been to a restaurant or a fast food place, and one time service was good, and next time service was bad. That's an example of the employees not living up to the brand, or the company not defining a brand, and therefore the employees are just behaving however they want.
Well, I mean, I see this in a lot of companies where they might have great product development, and great customer service when you call in, and everything about the company is great except their shipping department.
Yeah.
It could just be one area that has, as you say, that multiple personality to where it's like, well, where's my order? You told me it shipped last week. I haven't seen it. Like it was supposed to show up in 3 days. Like what's going on? Or all those kinds of things. But um, yeah, go on more. Like because I would
So
say that one of the reasons why people have an misunderstanding of this word is because um, there's this concept called a brand kit that the different organizations will push and say, well, you need to have a brand kit, and that's your brand. That it is the symbols, it's the colors, it's the fonts, it's all of that kind of stuff, and that makes up brand. So I think how do we move beyond that?
yeah, I think that's a good starting point. If you don't have anything, to think in terms of colors and fonts and such, that's one good aspect. But again, core values is part of the brand. Those things that the company is going to care about and represent at all times, whether it's employees behaving with employees or messaging that you're throwing out to the world, you need to make sure that it's consistent with the core values. And then you have a tone. There's some companies that go out of their way to be snarky and sarcastic, and people go to do business with them so they can get roasted, and that is the brand's personality, and they're known for it. And if you go in and the person's polite, you'd probably be offended because you wanted that snarky, sassy kind of an attitude from the employees because it's funny in the context that they've built. And so there's a lot of other traits that matter in ensuring that you have a holistic brand. And so the other side to that is a lot of small business owners think that they are the business. And so they think they are the brand. And that's not true either. If you're a solopreneur, when was the last time your business went and sat on the couch and watched a movie? Like, that's something the business owner does, but not the business. So there are distinctions even when you're a solopreneur between who you are and who your company is. And so it's never too early to start thinking about how do we want to represent ourselves? How do we want to represent the company or the business or the brand in the marketplace? I was in college and one of my professors, I don't remember how he was connected, but somehow he was connected, and I think it was a major restaurant chain like the size of an Olive Garden. I can't say if it was an Olive Garden, but one of those types of stores. And the the CEO was doing periodic checks, went in, to eat in the restaurant, walks in. The person that's supposed to be greeting them is sitting slouched over, didn't even acknowledge him when he comes in. The restaurant's empty, and he's looking around like, wow, this is bad. Anyway, so he does his whole meal, leaves, and they had to only fire two employees out of the whole staff. And the next time they go in, a little while later, the restaurant's bustling again. People are being taken care of. They're living up to that brand. They only had to replace, I think, the general manager and assistant manager, and everyone else went and started living those characteristics that the brand had. And then all of a sudden, customers started coming back because the experience was good. But while they weren't living true to their brand, no one wanted to be there.
Yeah, totally, totally fair. I mean, and that goes back to that integrity. Um, but it sounds almost like you're saying brand is it's part what we show to the marketplace, and but it's also tied to our internal culture.
100%. You can't separate the two. Even though internal culture only happens between the employees of a company, the way you treat the fellow employees is going to leak out, and you're going to be the same person when you work with the employee as you are with a customer. It's not typical that your employees will treat each other one way and treat a customer another way. So whatever culture you're going to have internally, if you're snarky, backbiting, fighting all the time internally, that's going to leak out, and customers are going to get samples of that ickiness when they interact with the company, because you can't turn that on and off. And so you have to have consistency both internally and externally. You have to be the same organization at all times.
So this idea that I can take brand and put it in a bucket over here and deal with it, at somewhat later time, as long as my sales are going good, I can ignore brand is it's wrong because it's so interconnected to everything that the company does.
100%. Absolutely. And that takes me, and we're almost out of time, but it takes me to the third word for the day, and that's marketing. And a lot of people have come to confuse marketing with the job of promoting your business in the marketplace. And so you've got, originally there was no marketing department in companies, and you had people who were promoters, and the marketing people were promoting, and then suddenly they changed the word to be marketing, and the people who were promoting your company out into the marketplace became marketers. But originally marketing had two jobs. One was to ensure that the brand was represented internally in the company, and then the second job was to make sure that the brand was represented externally in the promotion and external communication. So marketing, as I understand it in its true sense, has the job of ensuring that your brand is always there, always consistent. People are always representing it, whether it's internal communication or external. And that's what marketing truly is.
And so promotion is just a piece of that.
Ins- Ensuring the promotion is on point is marketing's job.
So they're really an alignment function between internal and external communication.
Yes, that is their job, is to make sure that everything is always aligned with the brand.
Perfect. So, I mean, yes, we have about a minute left. I would ask you because a lot of people confuse marketing and sales, so it'd be fun to dive into the distinction between marketing and sales and really, really pull this apart because in these distinctions that we develop, when we are very specific and we know what a word means, we can truly take that concept and move it to a whole new level. Whereas when things are all mashed together and we don't understand the connections between them, we lose power to act. And so for anybody who says I'm not wordy or this is too much, well, enjoy staying where you are. Um, but if you really, really want to grow, then you've got to learn how to pull out these distinctions and really understand the difference between these words and the concepts that they represent. because that will give you the power to move forward and make the necessary changes in your business so that you can live the life that you want to live.
Very well said. And that takes us to the end of today. Thanks,
But
everybody.
thanks, Jason.